Welcome. What does heaven look like? Christian painters, filmmakers, and novelists have had to wrestle with this question for millennia. How do you make heaven believable to your own time if you're a creator? The story of the Transfiguration of Jesus, wherein he becomes glorified while praying on a high mountain with some of his disciples, is where the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, and Luke give it a try. They are pretty sparse in their description, which is both an advantage and a disadvantage to the artists that want to depict the story. The advantage is that the artists get to apply their own imagination to the task. This allows them to try to connect to the ideas that will help their audience grasp the concepts. The disadvantage of that, what's believable to one audience is absurd to the next. This particular example from the mid-1500s in Italy doesn't really bother with the earthly part of the story, but emphasizes the heavenly. There's no high mountain, and the three disciples are nowhere to be seen. The two guys on either side of Jesus are Moses and Elijah, both of whom had been dead for more than 700 years at the time of Jesus. This is the aspect of the story that leads me to suggest that the story opens a window on heaven. Now, none of the three Gospels say that Jesus, Moses, and Elijah floated on clouds. This is the contribution of the artist's imagination. Now, from our perspective, almost 500 years later, this cloud floating looks like pretty old-fashioned, stereotypical heaven. Is this how you were taught to imagine heaven? Think about it, though. If heaven is the best of God's love, hope, and presence, how do you imagine heaven now? It's entirely possible that the artist Francesco Curia just liked painting people and angels and things floating on clouds. If you look him up, you'll see that he did a lot of it. This may have been just a toss-off sketch in his habitual style. If I were talented enough to paint the Transfiguration, I would do something to indicate why Moses and Elijah were the ones connecting to Jesus in this story. Curia has indicated Moses on the right with the tablets of the Ten Commandments. At least I think that's what the guy on the right is carrying. But I don't recognize any of Elijah's attributes in the figure on the left. See, I think that it's lost on contemporary viewers that Moses represents the Jewish law, the Torah, and Elijah represents the Jewish prophets. Those two aspects are important to Christian theology. Christians understand Jesus to be the new law, the new covenant. The Ten Commandments were the summary of the old law, the old covenant. The idea is that the law, God's law, was more important than Pharaoh's law or any other individual ruler's whims. Before that, rulers ruled by whims, and what the Ten Commandments did was bring law to the scene. And this was a key idea that separated the Hebrews from other cultures in the area. Prophecy in the tradition of Elijah is about reading the signs of the times, being able to see when and where a culture is straying from God's covenant, and calling the people back to the covenant in a way in which they will understand and choose to come back to the covenant. The one piece of the eternal realm that I think Curia does capture in this is that there is a lightness and a joy associated with the transfer of the law and prophecy from the ancient fathers to Jesus. What kind of lightness and joy would you depict in heaven? Thank you for watching. God bless.